Hello, families. Welcome. I am Vista the Senior Director of Student Family Community Instruction, and we are so happy to continue our parent engagement series. To me, as a parent and working in schools with kids, this is one of the most valuable workshops that you can have. There's so much regarding internet safety. There's so much that we deal with every single day, and it changes all the time. So it's very hard to keep up and really keep our kids safe online, especially with COVID happening, kids being online. That was the biggest playground for predators, to be honest, during that time. So the biggest thing is, how do we keep our kids safe? How do we teach them to be safe online? And I'm really excited to present Monique Myers from the San Diego District Attorney's Office to do internet safety presentation. And I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to her. Thank you.
Thank you. Some of you might recognize me from last week. It was me. Or I do. I talked about bullying, and there's a relationship between the internet and bullying we touched upon last week. For those of you that were not here last week or 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, my name is Monique Myers. I'm a community partnership prosecutor at the San Diego District Attorney's Office. I've been a prosecutor for 9 years in our office. My role is to go out in the community, learn about community issues, and then work with the community on addressing those issues through programming and policy changes in our office and out in the community. I was asked by the school district to talk about internet safety. We're going to talk about that. There's a lot of information on the slides. I knew you were going to be getting a copy to take home, so hopefully that covers a lot of the highlights. There's also a separate piece of paper about different social media apps. The idea is for it to introduce you to them. You might not be aware of all of them, but the handout really has information on what they're capable of doing and what you should be aware of. There's also another handout that is about fentanyl, and you might be thinking, why is she talking to me about fentanyl? This is an internet safety presentation. I understand why you're asking me that, but on the back of the page, there is a link to emojis and codes that we're seeing. It's published by the DEA. Because drugs are being bought and sold on social media apps, and it's done through coded conversations. And so there is a link, a website for the emoji dictionary, basically, that might be useful for you if you're looking at your kids' online presence. There's also another one that's related to human trafficking. We saw a significant uptick in online recruitment for human trafficking. The average age of recruitment for human trafficking is 15 in San Diego. So that means that kids as young as 13 were also being recruited, and that has been seen by the Human Trafficking Task Force here in San Diego County. And so that sheet has a lot of information about what to be on the lookout for as it relates to human trafficking and internet safety. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm not going to go deep into it, but I wanted to put it on your radar and give you a resource with more information on that site for you to take home as well. So with that, I will just get right into it. We're going to be talking about internet safety. I'm going to be relying heavily on a couple of different resources that I will tell you about. They're great resources. I don't get paid by them. I can't endorse anyone, but I will tell you that I'm relying heavily on the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children has a Net Smarts program, which we're going to talk about. Later on in the program, I'm also going to give you a list of a whole bunch of other resources. Again, I'm not affiliated with any of them, but I get asked this question every time, so I have upgraded the slide with different ones you might find interesting. There are others on the internet that you can find as well, but I compiled a list that might be helpful to you. Okay, so what does it mean to be online? Oftentimes when we talk about online, we think only of computers, but there are lots of different ways to access the internet, ranging from iPads to tablets to cell phones, gaming consoles. When I say online, I mean all of the ways in which you can connect to the internet, not just your computer. And it's important that we start looking at it that way. Oftentimes we put our roadblock on. We focus just on the obvious, that social media, but we forget that social media includes online dating because you're engaging with strangers online. And so I'm going to highlight that because oftentimes parents will say, oh, my kid isn't doing those types of things. They don't have Facebook. They don't have Snapchat. But they do hang out on Roblox. Well, they are engaging online with other people, and so you still need to be aware of these things, even if it is a game. So what is it, I'm going to ask you, what is it that your kids do online?
Roblox.
Roblox, okay, so that one hit home. Roblox, what else? What do you, there's two kids here who I'm gonna pick on. What do you like to do online? What's your favorite thing?
I like to play games
Mm-hmm.
and I love Roblox.
So Roblox, top notch. And what about you?
I just like to text my friends.
Do you use like Snapchat or Instagram and message them that way?
No,
Do you use any other social media site?
no,
Do you use YouTube?
no.
Okay, so those are all the right answers from mom who's sitting right next to you. So, we're gonna talk about that. Sometimes we have very strict rules, and sometimes kids have, I'm not saying you, but maybe you know of kids who have an account that mom sees and an account that mom doesn't see. Do you know of anyone that does that? I'm not asking you to name them or describe it in any way, but do you know of anyone that has like a for parent account and then their real social media presence? You don't. Okay. A lot of kids do that. They have a social media presence that they share with you, and then they have a second one. It's easy to create multiple social media accounts, and so they create a second one that you are not seeing that they use with their friends. And so that's why it's one of the main themes of today's conversation is I can tell you a lot of things about the internet. But the real conversation has to be with your children. Because if they want to have a secret internet presence, they will. And so it's important to have those safety conversations with your kids in advance about how to navigate all this. So I think it's great that the two of you are here. Because it's important for you to be aware. I know you can smile about that, that's good. Because you need to be in charge of your own internet destiny, right? Because they're not with, your parents aren't with you every second of the time that you're playing Roblox, right? And so you need to make smart choices by yourself. So that's the big thing. You take nothing away from today. It's about communication with your kids. And fostering channels of communication. If you remember nothing else that I say, please remember that. And that's your homework assignment. I'm not a teacher, but that is your homework assignment. I'm giving all the parents in this room a homework assignment, which is to start that conversation if you haven't already started, and continue it, even if you think you can have it. Because the reality is you can't have it too much. What are some of the things you should be talking about with your kids? It ranges depending on age, but overall, arching themes would include inappropriate content. What does that mean? When you say don't post inappropriate things, what kinds of things are you talking about? What does online privacy look like? Sexting, online enticement, and cyberbullying are all topics. Now you might be thinking, well, I don't know what's age appropriate for my child. Here's kind of a breakdown suggested by the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. For younger kids, it's important to talk about netiquette. So etiquette online, easy. But netiquette while you're online. What is good behavior online? How do you treat others online? What kinds of things do you post online? What's okay to post and not okay to post? Why? Looking at what is inappropriate content and talking about it, giving it a name. Discussing the importance of good passwords and password security. You know, maybe it's not your name 123, more clever than that. And talking about why internet safety and password protection is so important. The dangers of pop-ups, don't click on them. And to not trust everyone you meet online. When they're older, tweens and teens, is starting to talk more about cyberbullying, sexting, personal and inappropriate information online, and then the biggie is meeting people that you meet online in real life. So having those conversations early, before this issue comes up, to empower them so they know how to navigate these situations. Because kids know everything about the internet, am I right? Do you know everything about the internet? You feel pretty good about it? You feel pretty good about it, right? It's okay, you can feel good about it. But so as a result of that, it's important that we have these conversations so that when they think they feel good about it, they have a background. They have that backbone substrata to support them in making their decisions. Because they're going to be making decisions all the time. So what types of things are inappropriate content? Pornography, excessive violence, hate speech, and what is hate speech? And risky and illegal behaviors. Talking about these things in advance will take away some of the fear factor. It is intense for a child to stumble upon some of these things they weren't looking for. So by having that conversation, you allow them to create a space to bring it to your attention. They're not in trouble, but rather you're creating a forum for them to share with you this concern. So how do you respond? Child comes to you and says they see something, or you see it yourself on their own computer. How do you deal with that? that first reaction that you're gonna have internally is like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. You have to keep that to yourself. And then talk with them about it. Because that first initial contact is gonna set the tone for the rest of the conversation, right? And so if you frighten them, they're not gonna come to you with subsequent things that happen. Because that wasn't a good idea. So if you listen to them attentively, talk to them about how it's not their fault that they stumbled upon this stuff, and answer any of their questions, that is the beginning of developing that relationship between them to trust you for when they come across these things online. And then there's always, depending on what it is, methods of reporting it, whether that's reporting it to the online platform itself, right? Telling Instagram, telling Facebook, telling Snapchat, hey, this is not appropriate content. There's a method on each of those sites to do that. Or through the cyber tip line, whatever it might be, you can empower them to learn about how to do that as well.
I'm gonna say something.
Yes.
Something positive that comes out of and you said sensitivity. I always think of the that always seems to work.
Why do you think that works?
It's the trust, letting them know that they can trust me.
And that's the big thing, right? Is that they know that they can trust you. Because the reality is that there's a lot of stuff that they see online, and there's a lot of things that they hear in school and outside of school. And so creating that channel of communication is really the backbone of everything that I'm saying. I'm gonna be a broken record about it because I do a lot of volunteering with kids. And I'm often told stuff that they should be talking to their parents about, but they're not. They're telling me, the volunteer soccer coach, or the after school, I volunteer a lot. So, but they're telling me these things, which is great, and I appreciate that they are telling me these things. But I'm not the one they should be telling, right? I'm filling a gap of some kind. And so I'm stressing this communication thing. So that's a great tip for parents about thanking them, because it's hard to tell mom and dad something. It's hard to tell an adult something. It's scary. I'm not going to call you guys a bunch more, but you know it's scary to have to come forward and say something when you're like, I don't know if I'm going to get in trouble for this, but I want to share this information. That's scary. And so that's probably a great tip for parents to thank them. Does anyone have any other tips that they use? Because I think that that's probably very helpful to hear from other parents about things that work for them. No? Yes?
With them, I say, like, they can ask me anything that is off subject. They hear something at school and they're curious what that word means, to just ask me, because probably the kids are saying it, I don't even know what it is. But I will tell them the truth, age appropriate, whatever it is. And I feel like they do come to me sometimes with questions, and they'll be honest about it, so that's good.
And that's huge. And based on little smiling face next to you, I think that they feel that level of communication, because that trust in that communication. Because if they're not talking to you about it, they're talking to their friends about it. And they're getting word on the street for advice on things that really should be coming from an adult. Whether that's a parent or a soccer coach, some other trusted adult in their life. So what's the advice? Okay, so they come to you, they tell you, hey, I saw blah, 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 blah. Now what do we do? Well, coming up with a game plan for the future is really helpful, because they will come across something like this again in the future. It might not be this exact thing, but they will come across something else online that they know they shouldn't be looking at. So what do we do? The best advice is to just shut off the screen. So if you're on a computer, you can just turn off the monitor, right? You don't have to keep looking at it, whatever it is that you're looking at, and pause for a second. They can turn off their iPhone, their iPad, whatever it is, to just stop whatever's happening. That's particularly helpful for like videos and things that loop over and over and over again, is to just pause it. Because oftentimes it's hard. Yes, ma'am?
In second grade, the teacher always say something inappropriate would come up. You have to tell her, and then she would turn off the screen and then go back to work.
Exactly. And did you find that? Have you ever experienced that, or anyone you know experienced that before?
Someone did in my class.
Did it seem helpful to them to do that? Yeah, and so it's powerful to be able to shut off the screen and just say, not right now, right? And to go back to what you're doing. And so by having that game plan, like they just described, it allows that child to know moving forward, if this happens, they can take power over that situation. They know, hey, I can pause this, I can shut it off. Either using the back button or blocking it out, then telling a trusted adult. And then there's the same process of reporting it to the cyber tip line or to the online platform that it's on. Big part is also having a conversation about what they shouldn't be posting. This is a harder conversation to have. But having that conversation about etiquette, about what they should and should not be posting online, also flags to them what they shouldn't be accepting by the public, right? What is not okay for other people to be posting online. Whether that's illegal behavior, inappropriate behavior, offensive language, violence, underage using of drugs, alcohol, hate speech, all of those things are things that they should not post, but if they see other people posting, they know that that's also not okay. And having that conversation as well. Oftentimes they're like, I don't know if this is okay, but if you've talked about it ahead of time, you're at least giving them a roadmap of what's not okay. So that's the connect, learn, engage model is basically what we've been talking about, is talking to your kids about this head on. Some parents are hesitant to have these conversations because they're uncomfortable or awkward, and they might. But if you're not having the conversation, then they're in the dark. And so connecting with your child about these issues, learning about it yourself. So are you familiar with these platforms? Are you familiar with how TikTok, Snapchat, or whatever it is that your child is using, how it works? If you're not, it's a good time for you to start learning how they work. That way you can start navigating the privacy settings, you can start navigating how other people might be engaging with your children. Are there direct messages? Are they public forums? How does the website work? And then engaging with your children to have these conversations together. Learn together how the privacy settings work. If you don't know how they work, probably they don't know how it works either. So maybe spend some time together working on how to identify the privacy settings. So online privacy. This is a conversation that is challenging, especially with everyone who wants to be an influencer today. Every kid is posting lots of personal information about themselves. Adults do it too. So having that conversation about what's okay and not okay to post with specific examples is really important. So it's easy to say, don't post anything that's too personal online. Well, what's too personal for me and what's too personal for you might be very different. So having that specific conversation about what is too personal and what's not okay to post on specifically is really helpful because you're giving them a checklist of what not to do. They can more easily follow your rules this way. So what's okay and what's not okay? This might be different for everyone. Pictures of family and friends, personal information like where do you live, your full name. Some kids post photos of conversations that they're having with people in games where they prank each other and talk trash to each other back and forth. They post those online. Is that okay in your family or not okay in your family? Some of them create videos, cutesy, dancy videos on TikTok. Is that okay? Is that not okay? Some sites let you check in where you've been. You know, you were at this school or you were at this location for lunch. Is that okay or is that not okay? All of those conversations are important to have in advance because it's hard for them to know that this is okay or not okay without having that conversation. Some people think it's not a big deal to check in your location online, where you're eating lunch, like who cares? Well, I don't like that. I have a lot of reasons why I would be against that, but maybe you don't have any issues with that. I think it's important that people not know exactly where you are at any given time. Because why do they need to know that? There's no positive reason for it. Other people might not feel that way. So just have those conversations in advance based on the different platform that they're on and what's capable. So personal information. This one, I don't think it's up for discussion. I think this is a straight, this information should not be online. It's passwords, home addresses, your actual exact location, your phone number, and your email address. I don't think you should be posting that publicly online. And so you can have that conversation with your kids specifically. Now, if your password is the name of your dog and you post your dog name all the time, that's a problem. So working on creating more secure passwords can be helpful, especially if those are linked to things that you regularly chat about. So having the conversation as to why this information is important is very helpful for kids, especially if they are the more rebellious kind or who have a lot of questions as to these rules are arbitrary. So having the explanation as to what's the risk of sharing this information and why you should care might help if it seems like you're creating all these arbitrary rules you're reading. So common examples are identity theft, online scams, hacking, online enticement, and sextortion. Having, depending on their age, that conversation can be really helpful for them to understand why it's important to not share all that personal information. Because from their perspective, usually everyone is doing it, and so it's not a big deal. And so you're now creating new rules that it seems to me nobody else is following. And so if they have a better understanding of why you're creating these rules, they're more likely to follow it. So by establishing rules of what they can and cannot share, learning how to report things, then together setting privacy settings and creating strong passwords, and then talking about friends lists. Friends, or followers, whatever it's called depending on the site, is a really important conversation. So we have been desensitized to the fact that these are actually mainly strangers, because Facebook calls them friends, but they're not really friends oftentimes. Oftentimes they're complete strangers, and we become comfortable with this idea that there are friends or followers, they know us, whatever it may be. And so having those conversations with them about who's an actual friend, like you actually know where they live, or you know them for reals in life, you know their family, as opposed to this is a random person on the internet that is now following me. And making sure that there's a distinction between those two is really important, and making sure you know who your friends are online. I'm going to briefly talk about sexting because it's growing in popularity. So sexting is sending or posting partially nude photographs online or through text message. And it's a major issue that's going on. A lot of teenagers don't appreciate the issue of it. And they text for a whole bunch of different reasons. There have been many studies and surveys that have gone out. These are the top lists of why people sext. To be funny, there's peer pressure, they want to impress someone, or they're experimenting. It doesn't really matter the underlying reason. The issue of the photograph being in existence is the issue. But talking about it beforehand is really important because there's a lot of pressure to do this now. This idea that once you send your photo to another person, you no longer have control over that photograph is often lost on you. Because there's a naivety that exists of trust. So if I send you a photograph of anything, my shoes, I know that I have no control over this photograph anymore. So I send it to you, this lady in the front, I know that she can do whatever she wants with that photograph. I totally understand that. Okay, so if I send a private photo to her, I also understand that she can do whatever she wants with that photo. I have no control over whatever she wants with that photo. Oftentimes you think, no, but why would she do anything not nice with that photo? Hard stop. So it's a romantic relationship. Why would your boyfriend share that photo with anyone else? Why would your girlfriend share that photo with anyone else? Hard stop. Not like because you guys might break up and there might be some tension and feelings get hurt and then revenge photographs get sent out. That next step that adults probably get to rather quickly, youth often stop before they get there. And there's a whole, why would they do that? Which is beautiful. There's a naivety there that's lovely, right? That's charming and great that they ask, but why would they do that? But as an adult, you know there are a lot of different reasons why someone would do that, and they're usually not nice. And having that conversation in advance is really important. Now that's a really hard conversation to have. But having them understand that your photo, the fate of your photo is only within your control when it's yours. The moment you hand your photo or anything else to someone else, you've gifted them the control over that image. And you have no control over it. So with the emergence of Snapchat, are you all familiar with Snapchat? You send photos to each other and they disappear. Yes? No? Snapchat is an app where you send a photo to another person and it's in existence for a period of time and then it disappears off the app. It literally vanishes. And so people think that it's truly gone. So they were sending inappropriate photographs of themselves with the belief that it's a temporary thing and then it's gone. And then when I would talk to kids and say, well, you could take a screenshot while the photo is on your phone before it disappears. And they're like, yeah, but the app tells you when they do that. The app notifies you and says that the recipient took a screenshot. So they wouldn't do that because they would know. And they're like, yeah, but they can still do it. And once they do it, you have no control over what they do with that photograph. Or, to the next level, as I did in a presentation at school, I have two cell phones, right? I have a work phone and I have a personal phone. And so I grabbed my work phone and stuck a picture of a Snapchat on my personal phone. I'm like, you can't do that. I just did it. I can do it because I just did it. And not only do you not know what happened, which you have no power over once that has happened, once they've taken a screenshot, there's no power. You don't even know. And they just kept saying to me, but why would you do that? It's like, because I did. And that's the part of the naivety of the rose-colored glasses that is challenging to have these conversations, because it's like, but why did you do that? Because I did. And now that I've done that, what happens over that photo? Right? What's the next step of it? There are various consequences as it relates to sexting, whether they range from humiliation to blackmail, bullying, school discipline, and then police involvement if it leads to extortion. Even the distribution of nude photographs is distribution, production, and dissemination of, and possession of child pornography. So all of it has consequences, but psychologically they're very significant as well. So how do you talk about sexting? Talking about the consequences, one. But there's that naivety thing that I'm talking about where it's like, but why would you do that? That has to have a different type of conversation, more focused on the realities of what happens when you give other people that much power. It's important that they know not to forward if they receive any images that they think are inappropriate, whether that's sexting or a meme making fun of another student in school, right? One of those self-generated memes. Whatever it is that is an inappropriate image, it's important that they not perpetuate whatever's going on and forward it on to other classrooms or other people. The importance of healthy relationships is an important topic to talk about at this point too. And then how to report it, how to talk about it if these things are going on. So how do solicitations occur? So sometimes they just happen on social media, on social networking sites, older teens reaching out or adults reaching out to younger kids. But oftentimes it's peer on peer. The most important thing is for them to feel comfortable in figuring out how to say no. And so if you're at a party in college and someone wants to offer you drugs, how do you say no? It's the same type of thing. If someone offers or wants inappropriate photographs of you, how do you say no to that in a way that they're comfortable saying it, right? Whatever that might be. Whether they deflect it with humor and they have a canned response that they're comfortable with, or they just ignore the person, whatever it is, you've talked it through so that they are comfortable using those words. That's really important, whether that's blaming mom and dad or like a comical relief response of like, ha ha ha, like in your dreams, whatever it is, having that conversation in advance so that they're comfortable with it is really important. So offenders do groom children online and often tap into their curiosity and want to be accepted. And they do that usually by gradually introducing explicit images and requesting explicit imagery in return. So it might start off like a romantic relationship, where this person is giving lots of compliments, flattery, gifts, and then it will transition into requests for nude photographs. And it's a slow transition of a relationship. And so making sure that healthy relationships is part of this conversation can be really important to identifying that beginning grooming process. That handout that's on human trafficking that I have in front of the room is also helpful for this topic because it covers some of these questions and conversations you can have with kids. Various signs of grooming. Receiving gifts is a big one. So if your child is receiving gifts that you did not get, whether that's clothing or like purses, backpacks, items, tickets to games, whatever it is, things that were not purchased by you and they can't afford themselves, or whatever the item is, it's a sign to be on the lookout for who's buying them these things and why. Receiving calls from numbers that you don't recognize on their cell phone is another indicator. If they start isolating themselves from friends and family, they're getting upset if they're not allowed to be online, and they don't want you to see whatever they're doing, are all signs that there could be some grooming going on. That each one of these things in isolation doesn't necessarily mean that that's happening. These are just some signs that you can tell them. So what do? You'll notice this theme, talking to your child. So talking to your child about relationships and healthy relationships. And then for older teens or teens that you suspect are more likely to go out and meet the people that they meet online, having a conversation and rules about that. Knowing who your kids' friends are online, are they, as I discussed, Are they real friends or randoms that we don't actually know and having that conversation? Teach the children themselves the warning signs so they can identify it in their friends and in themselves when it's happening to them. And then obviously calling the police or reporting whatever's happening if it escalates to that level. How do you report something to the cyber tip line, or what are the types of things you can report? Basically, any sort of sexual material that's sent back and forth or requests to meet the child in public are the types of things you can report to the cyber tip line. These are also the same things that law enforcement wants to know about. So what do you do as a parent, right? How can you really see what's happening? There are various monitoring softwares that exist. One of the slides that I have, I created a list of various ones I found online. I just straight up Googled it. I don't know the veracity of any of these, but I Googled a list that you can explore. Certain cell phone providers have their own services as well that allow you to shut off the phone between the hours of X and Y or restrict the online access. So talk with your cell phone provider and see if that's an option on your carrier. Certain cell phones actually allow you to do it themselves as well. Individual apps have different settings that you should be aware of and monitor. Do you have access to their accounts? I was telling the story to someone recently, I think you guys last time, that, you know, when I was in college, Facebook was new. And it was new. Only certain schools could be on it, and I had it. And I was studying abroad in Spain, and I lived in a building that had the worst internet on the planet. And so I could never send any of my photographs from my trip to my parents. And I wanted to share what I was doing, but I couldn't. And so I gave my mom my Facebook login password information so that she could log on and see what I'd been tagged in. Because other people had good internet, my building just didn't. And so people were posting photos of what I was doing when I was studying abroad, and my mom could see them by logging into my account and seeing what I was tagged in. And people look at me like, you're absolutely insane. You gave your mom, I was 20, you gave your mom your Facebook login and password at 20? Yes, people, because anything that I'm doing on social media is not something that my mom, is not scary for my mom to look at, right? I'm not doing anything that my mom shouldn't be able to see. And so that is the biggest message for kids is whatever it is that you're posting online or seeing, it has to be cool. Mom, grandma, the neighbor down the street, your favorite teacher, your soccer coach, whatever. There shouldn't be any sort of funny business that's happening online that would be embarrassing if grandma saw it. If you're embarrassed that grandma sees it, you shouldn't be doing it. Period. Hard stop. Because whatever it is, it's out there forever. When it's on social media, it's out there forever. Even if you think you took it down, you did not. There are websites that allow it to come back, and other people might repost it. It's out there. So, like, I've had social media for a long time. I first got social media when I was 18 years old. I'm 36 years old. That is an eternity in the world of having your photos on the internet. That is my entire adult life. Are we stoked about all the things that are out there on the internet about me? No, we are not. Did you know I used to have an eyebrow ring? No. Am I stoked about that? Not as much. Now you can tell I probably was a surf instructor for a while because I keep saying the word stoked when I talk about my eyebrow ring. But anyways, the point is, that's not going to get me fired. But other people's social media presence might affect their ability to get college scholarships, job applications, job reviews, past background checks, whatever it might be. I do know someone at the district attorney's office, she shared with me that her application was stalled because of her social media presence from 10 years ago. What? Yes. She went to college, she went to law school, she passed the bar exam, she applied to be a lawyer. And then what is holding her back from being a prosecutor? A photo that was posted 10 years ago when she was in college. That is, she's fine. It turned out to be okay. But can you imagine the stress of that? A dumb image that was posted in college could affect your entire future. Well, it affected her. She was stuck in the background check process for a long time. And hopefully that doesn't happen to other people, but we all know that it does. There have been various articles that have come out about kids posting things online and losing college scholarships and other recruitment that have happened because certain colleges ask for your social media profile information and they search you and look you up. So having those conversations early is really important because it literally has long-term consequences. So we talked about this. Technology can't catch everything, so you have to communicate. But if you do need some help on those conversations, NetSmarts, which is that National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, has a whole website and section devoted to conversation starters and tips on how to have these conversations and cutesy videos that might help you have those conversations. So that your photo is going to get disseminated to everyone in the world. They have a video about that to help you with that conversation. Things like that. So it's worth checking out because it might help give visual examples to the things that you're trying to say if your child's a visual learner, but also hearing it from a different source is really helpful. They also have games, activity books, worksheets, a whole bunch of resources that cover all this. So it can be a really good compendium to the work of your day. These are two other websites that are really helpful in having these conversations and guides for having them. The internetmatters.org specifically has one as it relates to video games and internet safety for video games and settings. These are all programs that I think you have to pay for them, but they're all programs that allow you to monitor your children's activity on their computer, on their cell phone, tablets, and online devices. I get asked this question a lot, so for that reason I have this slide. But I can't answer any specific questions about any of them because I actually don't know very much about them other than that they provide that service. So they give you notifications, you can set privacy settings and things like that based on your consent. So I just gave a lot of information. What questions do you have?
I have a general question.
Yes.
I know a lot of this, like the stuff you have to worry about is like what people intentionally post, but what about like hacking? Like I just think about like all my pictures are saved, like my poor child. I don't actually have any social media, but I have millions of pictures of my child like in the cloud somewhere. Like does a lot of the stuff happen by hacking or is it just like really intentional stuff that gets posted?
So hacking is a concern, but that requires effort.
Yeah.
That requires someone to say, I actually want to hack either generally all of, I don't know if you have like iCloud, but I just want to hack all of that. Or you specifically requires an elevated level of attention.
Right.
Versus if there's just stuff posted online, that's passive.
Yeah.
And then if it's posted online with zero privacy settings, it's even easier than that. It's just easier to target. So from what you said, what I would be focusing on is the strength of my password. So what kind of password do you have? I'm obviously not asking you to tell me your password, but what kind of password do you have? What's the strength of your password? The biggest recommendation for passwords is actually not use a password, it's use a passcode, which is like a sentence. It's a keyword sentence. I don't have a slide of it, but so keywords, okay, so let's say your sentence is like, I love the beach, that's your sentence. And so you did like exclamation point for the I, a capital L, the number 0 for what, do you see what I'm saying? You don't actually have the words I love the beach right now. You associate a certain symbol, letter, or numerical value to each word. And so it looks just like gibberish. But when you look at it, you know it's I love the beach. My friend has like the Chargers suck.
Yeah.
And so they use the $sign for the S. You know what I mean? So you can create these unique passwords that you can remember. And then you might be thinking to yourself, well, how many of those can I actually have? So sometimes what people do is at the end of their unique sentence, they put a parentheses and an abbreviation of the website. So for example, if it's Gmail, they put GM. If it's Facebook, they put FB.
Yeah.
If it's Snapchat, it's FC. To make it unique to that site, but still part of the password. Now, is that the most safe thing in the entire world if I now create one sentence for all of my things? No, but it's way harder to crack that passcode as opposed to, you know, puppies 99. Yeah. Anyone else? Yes.
Going back to the postings and stuff like that, my son says his dream's not home, and we're getting ready to have this conversation with him. The favorite example he uses celebrities. They post the sexy partner, they're loving it, they're trying to do it.
that's a good example because it's widely known that those have happened. Being prepared for like, but that's just a random person, like that's a one-time off example, and that this isn't like the real world. You know, that's a Kim Kardashian situation, and that's not a normal person situation. That's sometimes just hard because it doesn't happen to my friends. Is the response for a lot of those things? Is I understand what you're saying, but you know, Susie did it and she's fine. And so that can be challenging that way. But if you Google that, you'll see that before the conversation, if you Google this, you'll see that there's news articles talking about lots of kids that it has happened to, and that might be more helpful if they do respond with but that's a Kim Kardashian situation, and not my regular life, I'm a regular person kind of situation. Because there are lots of examples online of that happening. And then also there's NetSmarts has a cutesy video that talks about that specific thing about they send one photo to one person and how it spreads. And then the punchline of the movie is that it then ends up at the person's brother who gets it, right? So you don't know where the video is going to go, and so they send a photo, and it goes around the whole neighborhood basically to everyone, and then ends up at the kid brother gets it sent to them. And so I think that's a powerful way of showing just the full lack of control, because obviously that's the last person that the photo is intended for. Well, here's my contact information. Don't hesitate to reach out. My cell phone number and email address are on the screen. It's also the last page of your packet. And then the TA website also has information about internet crimes and safety as well, in addition to all the other sources I just talked about.